everybody. I had a very good friend message me a few weeks ago, and she was asking me about low acid coffee, and I realized after searching it for a little bit that I had a lot to learn. So we've got Britton here today and Logan because he was sending me some scientific articles, and I was like, huh? What? So, but let's talk a little bit about, because I don't want people to get confused, like, we describe coffee as acidic, which is very different than acidity in coffee, like the pH level of coffee. So what would you say acidity in coffee, describe that for?
So acidity in coffee can mean different things. There's actually two types of acids that are naturally occurring in coffee. Those are organic acids and chlorogenic acids.
Those are the real acids in coffee. If you're going to say this coffee is acidic, the flavor profile or...
So those contribute to the flavor depending on
flavor.
what type of acid is in it. But basically it's like an astringent flavor that you can kind of feel on the front of your tongue. And a lot of people will confuse it with bitterness because it's pretty hard to tell the difference. But it's basically like a really bright, like lemony flavor on the front of your tongue. And you can feel it on your tongue right in the front.
Which is different than brightness.
Yeah.
Brightness
and acidity,
together.
yeah, they go hand in hand.
Like, so really bright coffees, Kenyan.
Those are all highly acidic coffees.
Which I do not like. Yeah. I don't like acidic coffees.
Acidic flavor
coffees, not pH level. Yes. Because that's a whole different thing. So, there are four main factors that influence coffee acidity, and I'm going to tell you, when you start researching this, you can tell that there's some marketing stuff going on compared to science, and things, like many things. The SCA, the Specialty Coffee Association, just did some studies on this and really dialed it in.
What they kind of did more is they gathered, there's been a ton of studies done on this from the 50s, and they still can't figure it out, but they've compiled all of that research together, and they're like trying to fill in the holes of what we don't really know, which is pretty cool.
Because for a long time, we believed that dark roast coffee actually had less caffeine because it was roasted out, and that's still in some of these things it talks about that, which isn't true. They did a big study, the SCA did. It was very negligible, the effect. But four main factors that influence coffee acidity. One, the coffee bean type. And lower grown coffee seems to have less acidity in it. So you're high grown, you're Jamaican probably even.
Well, and by less acidity, we're talking 0.4 on the pH scale.
Yeah.
We're not.
Yeah, and so there is the pH. Let's go back to the pH scale. So 0 is like battery acid, is actually at a 1. So very acidic. And then it goes up to, I guess, a 14. So actually the higher the number, the less acidic it is, which it's kind of backwards from what you think. So black coffee is right around a 5. Mm-hmm. And just to put that in perspective, like soda and juices are like a 2 or a 3, so they're quite a bit more acidic. So I thought it was interesting, some of the research said if your stomach isn't bothered by soda or juice, they're much more acidic. So it's not any acid in coffee that's affecting you. Yeah. And then distilled water is about a 7. And low acid coffees are about a 5.7. So they're a little bit more. And then cold brew coffee, which we'll talk about in a minute, is better. So so the coffee bean type, Arabica has less caffeine and less acid.
Yep. Generally
across the board. Obviously the lower grown ones, so specifically like Sumatra, Brazil,
Colombian,
are going to have less acid just naturally occurring in the coffee bean. And then the roast type of the coffee bean is what SCA said was the most.
It like changes how much acid's in the coffee more than anything else. So like in the what is it, the chloroquine acid levels, which are like the ones that affect your stomach more and don't affect taste so much. In dark roast coffee, almost 100% of those are
the
destroyed.
roast level. In light roast coffee, 45% of them are
destroyed in a light roast. Yep.
A medium is 60%, and then a dark roast is almost 100%.
Yep.
So a dark roast coffee is going to be the least acidic coffee, if that's something that you're looking for. So the quality, the Arabica, the lower grown, and then the darker roast. And we'll tell you which of our coffees at the end, kind of fit these criterias. And then the process followed to brew the coffee. So that also can affect the acidity level. Obviously, having more water is going to make the ratio to,
We'll dilute it.
And that's why cold brew, not iced coffee, but really cold brew coffee where you let it steep for, 12 to 18 hours.
In cold water. Yeah, the hot versus cold water with brewing methods, the hot water will break down those acids more and it'll extract them from the beans, whereas the cold water won't as much. It is a slower process and it doesn't draw out as much acid.
But you're diluting cold brew use. You're diluting it so much that it will be gentler. I mean, it's a milder taste coffee. It's usually so. And then water quality, which is just the pH level of your water at your house, which can vary widely. So when you're brewing coffee, the water level at your own house, which we know a lot of people don't think about this, but you can take incredible coffee and brew it in really not great water at your house, and it will be bad. We in our stores have filters. We have filters before this, extras before the espresso machine and the brewers, because water quality is huge for a good cup of coffee.
It is important though, so you don't want to use distilled water. You still want some minerals and stuff in there, but it should be it should be a low level of minerals. It should be controlled, not just using distilled water, because that'll take away a lot of flavor from it too.
And you should always wash your filters.
Yeah, always wash your filters before you brew.
Yeah, and that's what some of the paper filters, they said that could help if you're looking to reduce the acid using a paper filter, that would. And then I've never heard of it, but I have heard of people doing this by putting eggshells in your brewer.
Maybe.
Washing them really well and putting them in there, that can help. And adding just a teeny bit of salt will help reduce the acid level in the brewer before you brew coffee. We haven't tried these things.
No, there's no scientific evidence of any of those.
Well, there kind of is though. So ways that you can reduce the acid in your coffee: add milk, right? Brew with more water. Yeah. So add water. I guess eggshells or salt. You can try those.
Calcium. Oh, eggshells or
salt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And picking the right bean. So which ones of our beans would be the best low acid?
So the best one that I can think of would be our Pacific Dark Roast. It's just the darkest coffee we offer, and then it's also made with coffees that are grown at low elevations. So those will have less acid naturally. I would also say that our French roast or Italian would be good because those are also dark roasts. And if you're looking for higher quality single origin, our Sumatra is a dark roast that's grown at low elevations. So that one would be pretty low acid for you.
And really not very many of our coffees are truly light roasted. So really most of them are more medium roast anyway to get the best flavor for the coffee.
Yeah, just basically our Kenya and Ethiopian are going to be our lightest roast. If you have problems with acid in coffee, don't buy our Kenya or our Ethiopian.
Which makes sense because they're very acidic and bright coffees, but those are the flavors you want from those coffees, so you don't want to roast them out.
Yeah, we don't want to destroy the good organic acids that are in those coffees because they taste so good.
Which, why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because you don't want to destroy all the acids in coffee.
Yeah, so the reason... So there's 5 main acids that contribute to good flavor and result in higher cupping scores. It's going to be citric, lactic.
You're so technical.
Malic. And then there's 2 other ones. And they occur during the fermenting process of the coffee. So the more expensive coffees we buy are actually naturally fermented. for a while before they had cherries actually come off of them and before they clean them and get them to us. So they're trying to develop all those acids, the growers are, so we don't want to destroy them by dark roasting those coffees.
Well, that helps develop the taste profile more than it actually changes the pH level of the coffee.
Correct, yeah. So it's not worth it to destroy those acids for like a 0.5 pH change.
Yeah, because it wasn't cold brews like a 5.1 on the acid scale, and then the darkest roast is 5.7. So, I mean, you're still within the 5 range on the pH scale. You're not going very far.
Right.
Yeah,
It's way different than a soda or a juice, right? I mean, that's a big difference from 2 to 3 or 5 to almost 6 too. So, most of our body are neutral, so there's 7, right? So 7 is I know pH balance of water and other things. And the gastric acid in our stomach is between a 1 and a 3.
Well, it was interesting too because in the studies over and over again, it was kind of saying that the acid in coffee is not actually what affects your stomach. There's hormones and other things in coffee that can cause certain parts of your esophagus
have to make a bathroom. Like a lot of people drink coffee and like, I've got to go to the bathroom after I drink coffee.
Yeah, there's actually hormones and other things in coffee.
With the esophagus, so it's not really your stomach, it's more an esophagus. And caffeine can contribute to it.
Yes.
So if you do have it, going to a half calf or a decaffeinated coffee can help it too.
Especially on an empty stomach. I mean, most people, they get up and they drink their coffee, your stomach is empty. And
I thought this was interesting though. This is Cindy Penaranda, a registered dietitian in Arizona. She said really the acidity of food and drink aren't an issue because much of what we ingest goes through our stomachs and is broken down with gastric acids. There really is no good evidence that acidity is the problem people have with coffee. And I thought that was interesting. If you don't have a problem with pop or juices, which are much more acidic than coffee, then coffee itself really isn't the problem. It may have more to do with caffeine.
Yeah, or coffee. Even like some of the bacterias that are naturally occurring in coffee, which sounds gross.
Fermentation
but
process.
yeah, there's just natural bacteria there that some people are more susceptible to than others.
I mean,
what did you say?
Wine, the different bacteria or anything.
Like 9% of coffee is antioxidants.
Yeah, so in the organic acids are actually antioxidants, and 4 to 9% of coffee is actually these acids, which are all antioxidants. So they're doing a bunch of research right now. They don't know a ton about them, but they do know that 4 to 9% of coffee is actually antioxidants, which is surprising. That's like a really big number.
No, it's more antioxidants than tea. A lot of times coffee is good coffee. No, we're not talking Arabica, specialty grade coffee. We're not talking coffee with a bunch of fillers and coffees that had time to develop some of these properties. But I mean, we talked about the health benefits of coffee, and to me it's quite amazing, really. But you figure it comes from a coffee cherry.
Yep.
And there's so many cherry properties.
Yeah, and the good growers who let that coffee ferment and aren't using machines to get it out, that stuff is going to have more of those organic acids, so it will be better for you, which is huge to us because we only buy specialty grade coffee that's treated really well and goes through good processes. So
just kind of to recap, so coffee generally has about a 5 pH level, and ways that you can make it less acidic, add milk. That's an easy way, is to do that. Add more water, so you can brew it at a higher, a 10 cup rather than a 6 cup, or just really adding more water. I guess brewing it with eggshells, which I've never tried, or a pinch of salt, which I can see salt being really good and adding some taste, honestly, to coffee, a little bit of sweetness or cutting it a little bit. Doing lower grown coffees and darker roast. So those are a lot of variables that you can take into account. You don't necessarily have to pay $25-$30 a pound of coffee for low acid coffee. I would try some of these things first and see if they make a difference. And again, kind of going back to if you can drink pop and juice, maybe it's first thing in the morning thing on an empty stomach, or maybe it's more of the caffeine and eliminating some of the caffeine are some strategies. So anything you'd like to add, Logan? So thank you, Logan, for being here. He is our roast master here at Coffee Beanery. So he really geeks out about coffee and likes to read all the studies and just keep up on it. And I was a little confused. He's like, look at these charts. This is so fascinating. I'm like, okay, what's CQGA again? So, but thank you very much for tuning in. If you guys have any questions, if you have anything else about coffee that you're really interested and want to talk to Logan about, let us know, and we'll get him back here for another Wednesday morning coffee session. Have a great day.